Hello and welcome to This Car Pod.
I'm Kenan.
I'm Filippo.
And today we have a special guest, Rivian CEO and founder, RJ Scaringe.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome, RJ.
Thank you for joining. This is a big deal for us. Huge.
Same.
We're sitting here at the Quail Motorsports Gathering or something, and we're at the Rivian booth where we have all sorts of Rivians around us, and we're going to talk cars and we're going to talk Rivian.
Amazing.
So thank you for
just
coming.
Rivian.
Not
We'll have
just
other
Rivian.
topics.
We got a whole big show.
Probably.
And we're going to start, as we always do, with the news. You want to start?
Yeah, first we're going to talk about the Quail in general. We've been walking around all morning. Are there any good reveals so far that you've seen?
Well, first point I want to make is this has kind of become like the new Geneva Motor Show. There's so many reveals that are just happening. This was just kind of an enthusiast show for a long time, and now it's like the place. There's so many different manufacturers. At least
There's Bugattis, there's an Acura.
Bugatti. Yes.
Chevrolet revealed the CX concept, which is the future of the Corvette.
Future of the Corvette, it's got a cockpit
Apparently.
that comes off.
How do you feel
RJ,
about
have you seen anything that you like here so far? Aside from the Rivians, which we'll get
Of
to.
course.
Yeah, the Rivians look nice. It's funny, I was walking with my three sons, 9, 7, 6 age, and they're looking around, they're saying, hey, Dad, is that cool? Is this cool? And I'm like, that's not cool. This is super cool.
Okay, now, so what do we tell them now? Now we got to get
Now we gotta into it.
What do we tell them is not cool? Other electric cars.
There's some beautifully, there's like wonderful historic vehicles that are here, and they're just, the kids just walk by it, and I'm like, hey, that's
Right.
That's
Yeah.
a 275 GTB. Like,
Right,
guys,
right.
take a second, look at it.
Right.
And then they'll see some highly modified thing and ask me about that. And I'm like, no, that's something I probably want to pay attention to.
Man after my own heart. That's great.
Were they excited about seeing 17 different Ferrari F50s? Or like after one or two, were they bored?
Yeah, if they're one, I think they were.
To be honest, I was too.
The F50 thing is crazy. They're just
There are legitimately 17 on the other side of the line.
There's also like 17 Shelby GT350s, which I know is more up your alley.
Yeah.
Okay, so but we're talking news here, and have there been any specific debuts? There was the Bugatti.
So the Bugatti is actually more the reveal of a program. So it's called their Solitaire program, where they're making one-of cars, and which they've done before. But the thing that was interesting to me, this one's called the Bouillard, but it's based on the engine is the W16. So the new car has the V16.
Yeah.
But they're continuing this W16.
Wow.
So that's based off the previous car.
Yes, and they're going to continue to use that for this program, which I think is very interesting.
There is a new Lamborghini.
Is there? I thought it was like a special edition Revuelto.
It hasn't been revealed yet. Well, yeah.
I mean, it has an hour ago there.
Oh,
I just I couldn't see it. Yeah.
We bumped into the Lambo guy this morning, and he said, "Here's what it is. Here's what it's called, but don't tell anybody I told you that." For another hour.
Right.
But I guess it's already
But
out.
what is it? This, by the way, doesn't come out till Sunday, so you're good.
Oh, okay, all right.
There's no embargo on this.
Just for clarity.
What is it called? The Phenomeno?
I think so.
Oh, wow.
We haven't spent enough time.
We were busy. I was distracted by F50s.
The reveal that I'm most excited about, of course, is the Acura RDX. No, I'm so sorry.
RSX.
Not the RDX, the RSX, which is a small EV SUV.
Concept.
You must be very frightened as the maker of EV SUVs.
I don't know, frightened. I think it's great to see things coming out. Yeah.
This is a special event where there are a lot of very cool cars being shown,
Yeah.
and those are a few of them. There are others. I haven't checked out this Corvette thing. They literally just pulled the wraps off it, so we'll have to do that later. But that is kind of our interesting vehicle news at Quail, and there's still more happening.
Well, it's fun to be here. It's like, again, it's kind of replaced motor show, so it's cool to see it up close and be around for it.
This is my first time here, and it's wild just to see both the cars that are here generally, your Countach included, and then what they're revealing. And it's automakers that I don't care about. Like, I care about the Rivian stand, the Acura stand.
Philippe only likes the regular brands. He's not into the super.
I'm into supercars, he's into regular stuff, and Doug is
And therefore, this is not my event, but it is wonderful nonetheless.
Yeah.
it
the
is
parking
not-
lot here.
The
is
parking
great.
lot.
Right?
Very
Okay.
special.
That's the best.
It's
Very
really
special.
enjoyable.
Yeah. In fact, there is actually a parking lot Best in Show award, which you can vote for.
Yeah.
You go out in the parking lot, you take a look what's
go.
out there, and you can write in a thing and submit it somewhere.
I
And
may
there's
have cast my vote for an E39 M5. It's
Wow.
out there.
Your
but-
own?
Some would
Oh
say,
my
you know?
God.
There's a white two-door Mercedes wagon with a blue
Yes.
interior.
Yes, we saw that
It's so
yesterday.
bizarre. It's like
just
a
bizarre.
wagon,
Yeah.
but it's a two-door.
Yeah.
It's some sort of custom thing. Okay, so this is Quail news. Let's talk industry news, Filippo. Can
Yeah.
you
All
give
right.
us some interesting industry news?
We have some real questions for you. So last week on the podcast, we talked a little bit about, we filmed it right after Q2 results were announced for Rivian, and we figured we have you on the podcast this week.
Yeah,
You're the right man to ask. Obviously, some increase in revenue year over year, Q2, also a little bit more burn. What is the story that you all are telling around it? What led to that quarter?
To Q2?
To Q2, yeah.
Q2 is a challenge for us because we had a significant drop in production where If you look at Q1, we produced around 14,000 vehicles. In Q2, we produced around 6. And the reason for that significant drop was a lot of really abrupt changes to the supply chain. And in our case, we produced 100% of our cars in the United States, and of course, 100% of those are electric. So the export controls are on heavy rare earth metals.
Yeah.
So effectively magnets really hurt us because we only make electric cars, and every electric car needs magnets to make the motor. So we had to do a lot of work to come up with a new supply chain and really like dramatically shift how we were sourcing a lot of the materials that go into our motors. And so we just had like a abrupt slowdown in production. And you know, the nature of our business is high fixed costs. So the cost went up, or the cost stayed the same, but we weren't spreading those costs across a lot more volume. So we guided that the second half of the year, we're going to actually produce more vehicles in the first half. We think Q3 is going to be a really strong sales quarter, just in part because of the ending of the $7,500 tax credit. So a lot of folks are going to be rushing to get their EVs right now.
Are these trucks eligible, the R1T and the R1S?
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
If you lease an R1, you qualify.
Okay.
So a bunch of sort of compounding factors, but look, couldn't be more excited. We're coming up on the launch of R2, and R2's for me, R1 is like a labor of many, many years of love. R2's benefits from an organization that's so much more mature, and so everything from how it's manufactured to how it's serviced to the performance relative to its cost, it's really, really cool.
I remember hearing, when I was reviewing the Q2 results, that you guys predict that tariffs will cost about $2,000 or $3,000 per vehicle you sell, which is wild. And I think we often think about tariffs as impacting cars that are imported, but as you said, they're all made in the U.S., but it's still a 3%, 5% to 5% impact depending on the model. That's notable.
The other thing about auto is, I mean, you guys know so well, it's not, I think a lot of times we talk about tariffs and we sort of equate the economy to as if we're like buying and selling t-shirts and coffee cups, like really simple supply chains. These are really complex supply chains. So we buy, take like our headlight, we buy that as an assembly from a US manufacturer, and it comes, it's built in the US. It has about 20 suppliers into it, and those 20 suppliers then each have about 10 to 15 suppliers. So there's hundreds of companies involved with making our headlight, and many of those companies are getting materials that come from outside the United States, and that's on one part.
Right.
And so the ripple across something with such a complex supply chain is hard to fully appreciate.
Right.
You realize we buy 3,000 parts, put them together, but there's actually more than 10x that in terms of discrete components that are going into the car.
Wow.
Because we buy assemblies.
Right.
So it's, it does, despite the fact that we're very US-centric and we're very vertically integrated, it still adds a few $1,000s in cost.
One of the things that we struggle with is, like, we care a lot about the market, we read a lot about the market, but we're not deep in it. And I feel like one of the hard parts is, from the outside, is how do you actually figure out what is tariffs, what is not? There's a lot of changing rules. And I imagine as you're thinking about suppliers, you've tried to focus on, as every tech company did, do I move production to India instead of China? But now there's additional tariffs there. How have you been managing that?
I mean, to your first question,
is there better guidance?
There's a daily stand-up meeting we have within Rivian that says, like, what's changed in the last 24 hours, which I didn't anticipate having, but every 24 hours we review what has changed in terms of trade policy, tariffs, and so that informs, like, what are we doing that day, that week to react. And then there's a longer-term strategy that we're building, and some of these decisions are really hard. So take wiring harnesses, very labor-intensive. Almost all of the wiring harnesses for cars built in the United States are manufactured in Mexico because of the much lower cost of labor.
And because till about 4 months ago, that was
and because we've had this long-standing, multi-decade North American free trade agreement. And so when that changed, everybody's like, wow, should we start building wiring harnesses in the United States? But then you don't want to, like, invest a bunch of capital to build production capacity, then have the rules changing in a couple of years, and then have a really expensive wiring harness production line.
Right.
And so in many cases, there's decisions where we're essentially saying we're going to continue to source from a lower cost location and just pay the tariffs in the short term. Short term meaning next few years.
Yeah.
And then in some cases, we've made the decision to bring into the United States. But these are hard trade-offs.
Is the assumption that in a post-President Trump world, some of these things go, like, are you operating under that assumption generally that maybe you're not going to have to worry about this stuff soon, and so it's not worth that big investment for some of this stuff?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'd say we actually have a live working memo, and there's a few categories in it. One is, what are the things we think are going to stay? Like, what are changes that are going to be, sticky? And then what do we think is going to move around? So one of the things that we think is going to be persistently with us in terms of like the U.S. economy is trade policy that makes it very hard to do a lot of business with China.
Sure.
And so it's one of the few categories of topics where the left and the right agree. There's a very strong anti-China trade mentality. And so, of course, we're not building supply chains that have really any reliance or dependence on China. One of the ones we think is going to be moving around a lot over the next few years is trade within North America. And it's been such a pillar of our economy, and so much CapEx has gone into Canada and Mexico that it's hard to imagine a world where we don't return to friendly trade relationships with our northern and southern neighbors. And I think that's generally the point of view. Most companies believe that.
Yeah.
And
so you're kind of operating with that.
And so we're not replacing Mexican supply chains with U.S. supply chains, but we are very much making sure we don't have China dependency.
Yeah, which seems like the story we're hearing from other companies and other automakers.
You guys are also one of the few EV manufacturers that hasn't developed a China market product or a real focus on the Chinese market generally.
So we actually didn't have a lot of content out of China to start. And we'd done a lot of the sourcing activity in R2, and like a lot of the contracts being written in the summer of 2024. And it was pretty clear then.
6 months too soon.
No, but even then you could say, like, regardless who wins this election, like, we're not going to go become really close buddies. The U.S. and China.
Yeah.
So we'd already made the decision to not really rely.
Never mind that China. At the moment, tariffs are not that much more significant than they are some other countries where you may have expected different.
Yeah.
Obviously, tariffs been a big story for us, but we want to move on to other news stories. Let's talk about Ford and Ford's recently announced EV platform.
Yeah, so last week, Ford has announced that they're planning on building a $30,000 pickup truck. Yeah. And much more importantly, they are also they've announced this kind of new production methodology where instead of there being a single production line, there's a bunch of different inputs that then create one, that flow into one thing. Huge news for Ford, obviously, right? A $30,000 pickup truck, electric pickup truck will be huge. They refer to it as their Model T moment. Yeah. In reference to how popular this price will be and to the factory line. What do you think? First of all, Slate, I have bad news for Slate in that might kill their market. But how are you guys reacting to this? How are all of you reacting to this?
Yeah, what are your thoughts? I mean, obviously it's an interesting thing to hear about. The Mach-E was kind of already Ford sort of entering in the segment, but it seems like they want to go even higher volume and even lower pricing.
Yeah. Look, I say this all the time. I think it's really important we have choice. As a car enthusiast and as someone that wants to see electric vehicles be really widely adopted, where people are excited to be in them, the only way we're going to get there is if we have more than a handful of highly compelling choices. And we see today at the sub $50,000 price point, I'd say there's more than one, less than five highly compelling choices.
Right. Yeah.
And you could.
I won't ask you which is which.
Yeah, and you would certainly two of them you would clearly say are the Model 3 and the Model Y.
Yeah.
And they command together around 50% market share. And that's not actually a good thing. It's like that's reflective of an underserved market.
Sure.
When you have hundreds of compelling choices in the ICE world. And so I think it's great that Ford's working on, a product that's going to, from the specs sounds really compelling.
Yeah.
I think to do it, you do have to rethink architectures. And there's a lot of focus on the manufacturing architecture. I think another element that we're going to see that needs to change is how we think about the network architectures.
Yeah.
So the topology of compute and how software is architected in the vehicles, I think, going to change dramatically over the next 5 to 10 years. And we've, of course, are driving that within our vehicles.
Right. I mean, the biggest takeaway for me from that news story is a lot of what they described as minimizing wiring work, changing the architecture for the car itself, despite it being 400 volt instead of 800 volt, is that's exactly what we all did with the Gen 2. So I imagine you're all moving that direction.
Totally. I mean, so we have a large joint venture we put together with Volkswagen.
Yeah.
So it's a $5.8 billion deal, and we're licensing what we call our zonal architecture and our software stack. But what that's really doing is it takes what is on the order of, call it 75 to 100 little ECUs, little electronic control units that are domain-based. So they maybe are driving a window mechanism or an HVAC system, and instead consolidating all that compute into a very small number of computers, and then having all that decisioning and controls driven by a single software OS, operating system. And so I think that's obviously the future state, but it's going to take some time to get there, and it's very hard to do.
All right, we've got to talk about the shirts of the summer. True classic. You've probably seen them everywhere lately, and there's a reason. They nailed the perfect fit. Tailored where you want it, relaxed where you need it, not tight, not boxy, just right. I've been wearing them now for a while, and I'll be honest, when you throw one on, the rest of your closet feels a little outdated. The fabric's soft, it holds its shape, and you don't have to baby it. And the price, that's the best part. This isn't some $90 designer tee or $130 polo. You get the same premium look without emptying your wallet. These guys started with one goal: make clothes that look right and feel amazing without the crazy markup, and it's clearly working. Over 25 million shirts have been sold, more than 5 million customers have bought them, and over 200,000 five-star reviews are on their site. They've got more than just t-shirts now too. Polos, hoodies, jeans, you name it, it all follows that same true classic formula. Great fit, great feel, great price. Grab your True Classic at Amazon, Target, Costco, Sam's Club, or just go straight to trueclassic.com/cars and try them yourself. Trust me, once you do, you're going to start phasing out all the old stuff.
Yeah. I have a lot of additional questions, but I don't want Ken to just literally fall asleep. So I want to talk about the exact opposite of this.
Yeah, which is Chrysler
and Dodge.
Decisions.
Right, so Dodge announced it this week, or finally revealed, we've noticed coming for a long time, the Charger 6-pack, which is the Hurricane V6 powered Charger. And they've also announced that the Dodge Durango is coming back with only V8s, exclusively V8s, despite the fact that they claimed it was going to go out of production.
Well, boy,
2 years
howdy,
ago.
that was quick.
Yeah, so Ken's excited again.
Yeah.
This is an interesting situation that's kind of been brewing. In addition to what we're talking about with regards to tariffs, now you have this sort of sentiment in the consumer world sort of shifting back. I don't want to say away from electric vehicles, because obviously there's still a lot of interest there, but Chrysler seemed to be kind of going all in, Stellantis, on electric cars, and now, maybe we want engines again.
Electric vehicles.
Maybe we want engines again. Maybe we want V8s again.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting thing to see, and it's also kind of driven by what might end up being a temporary shift in sentiment and in policy and whatever. But nonetheless, this is kind of happening.
Right. I do feel for the manufacturers, because that level of whiplash is, the product cycles are designed so far in advance, and it really has things. Obviously, electric has become a way of the direction that things are going. So to have to then all of a sudden change to get the internal combustion again is kind of crazy.
By the way, it's not like they're shifting. The Hurricane V6 is new, but for a different product initially for the Ram. They're not bringing out a new V8 for the Durango or a new model for the Durango.
No, but I would argue people don't want the new stuff.
No.
They actually, what they specifically wanted was the old engines that made the big power and the big torque and sounded like they do. Yeah. What are your thoughts on sort of a shifting world of consumer demand? Is this permanent? Are we going back in the direction of combustion engines?
When are we seeing a V8 in the
Rivian? We're not planning any V8s in the Rivian.
Alas.
I think you're on the edge of your seat.
But someone will do a swap it. Someone will do that at some point.
How would you?
Someone will figure it out.
Wheel of a lot of work.
There is enough YouTube dollars out there that someone will figure it out.
That's a good perspective.
Someone put the V8 on a Cybertruck.
But when you have 1,050 horsepower, it's hard to beat that.
Well, no, you wouldn't be beating it. It would actually be you'd be downgrading the
slower. Yeah.
But what are your things? It's an interesting situation. Obviously, you're noticing this as well.
Yeah, you said it. It's in the list of things I didn't expect, which the list is growing. I wouldn't have expected a lot of the manufacturers that had started to really lean into electrification to so quickly lean back out and then reinvest in engine programs, vehicle programs built around engine architectures. And you said it. I'm sure it's challenging for the teams on those programs.
I can't imagine.
But you can see why. They're optimizing around the short term. There's clearly customers that can be picked up through that. The hard question, for the manufacturers, and I think for us as a country and as like an industry, is what does the 2030s look like? So the end state is very clear. And if you underinvest in electrification and rely in terms of profitability and product desirableness on sort of your classic old hits, if you will, are you going to find yourself unable to compete when the world inevitably does make that full shift. And so I say this all the time. I really hope everybody continues to lean into electrification. I think more competition is really healthy.
So you view this as a temporary shift. You view this as this isn't going to be something that lasts and sticks around, but nonetheless, it's happening currently. They're going after this, but maybe they're making the wrong decision, chasing short-term customers and short-term revenue and not focused on the long term.
Yeah, I think, and these are big shifts. I mean, it's a shift, especially for someone who's, think if you've been driving cars for 30, 40 years, it was hard to lose the manual transmission. And then
we have not accepted that, by the way.
So that was a hard thing for some people.
Just to be clear.
And then it's like, okay, well, I lost the manual transmission. And then you lose the engine. And so there's a lot of nostalgia, enthusiasm, but that's quickly shifting away. And like, now my kids are very biased, but my kids are like shocked when they're in a car that you have to like change the gears. Like, Dad, this is
interesting.
Like wildly complex.
The next generation is already growing up normalizing this.
Yeah, to them it's like, wait, so you have the thing you have to do with your left foot, you have the thing, and like, boy, like in a Rivian, it's so much faster, and you just go.
Nonetheless, we do hear, and it is a lot of manufacturers who are saying, okay, Porsche's saying Macan EV is not selling, Taycan is not selling, Mercedes-Benz EQ is apparently being pulled out of the market, except for the thousands of unsold cars that they're going to still have to try to put down. Does it make you at all nervous that you're too early, like that the EV is still not quite ready for the widespread world that we were thinking maybe 5 years ago it would be at?
Well, let me say this. I actually think it's bad for the country. I think it's bad for the U.S. competitiveness to have.
I agree. We've had this point on many times.
U.S. manufacturers not need to innovate. Like when you can rely on the crutch of V8 SUVs or what you've made a lot of money with historically, you're just not going to build the muscle and the capabilities that you need to in this state, in this future state that's going to be needed to be globally competitive. So I think that's bad.
70s again.
Yeah, it's like the 70s again. I mean, the U.S. auto industry actually learned this lesson once before, but all those people are gone.
Yeah.
So they're might end up having to learn it again pretty soon.
2008.
I mean, when the Japanese came in and then eventually the Koreans came in and started really having a big effect because they knew how to build a type of car that the Americans weren't building, which is a point that we've tried to make a million times on the show because we get a lot of comments, EVs are crap and screw China, who cares? Well, if China ends up showing up with these cars that are far better than our cars, that's a problem.
Their cars float. And they bounce.
We're going to get to that.
So I think, it's bad. I think it's, like I'd said, I wish this wasn't the case, but it's hard to ignore that it means less competition in the short term.
Yeah.
And for pure play EVs, especially pure play EVs that the brands are built around electrification, so Tesla, Rivian, it's definitely going to create a positive tailwind. And I think you see it, perhaps most pronounced just with what's happening right now. There's a lot of manufacturers who have made cars that are electric but that are not super compelling, and as a way to get zero emission vehicle credits or to lower their corporate average fuel economy, rather than buy credits from Tesla or from Rivian, and they've incentivized those sales very heavily. So you see like very wonky lease deals. You can lease. There's some electric cars you can lease for like
us, we know.
Charger EV, incredibly well aware.
Charger EV. Have you not thought about going and picking up a Charger EV for $99 a month?
It's like sort of like, wow, for like $50, I get a whole car. But that's going to go away,
right?
And so then you're going to be stuck with a more, like, call it natural market that's behaving based upon real economics. And then I think that the gap between the folks that are not building EVs is going to grow. And
so the subtext in your answer is you're not nervous about that you're too early. Quite the opposite. You think you're well positioned for what will inevitably happen.
Yeah.
And these other automakers are maybe the ones who are kind of screwing things up.
Transitions like this are always tough. And there's no direct analogy that has all the exact same things. But if you go back a long time, peak horse was in the 1920s. So like peak horse
right before there was no horse. Yeah.
Right before there was no horse.
Peak horse.
Yeah.
How did
we get peak horse?
That's a great phrase.
And we are, by the way, peak V8. I think
peak V8. As we should be. Okay,
I'd say we're peak V12.
That's the news. That's interesting takes on the news. Interesting to get your perspective on some of this stuff that's happening, but we got to move on to the Talk Cars segment, wherein we talk about cars. Now you're thinking we were just talking about cars. It's true.
We're going to really talk about
cars. Now we're going to really talk about
Can we
cars.
still talk about wiring harnesses?
No, we want to talk about RJ. We want to talk about RJ. RJ, in addition to the whole Rivian thing, which there's more to cover there, RJ is a car enthusiast.
Yeah.
All right. What are your... We want to know, what are you interested in? What do you like? What are you driving?
We know no manuals. His kids don't know about
I love
transmissions.
manuals,
Do you own one?
I do own one man.
Okay, what is it?
I have a Volkswagen Corrado.
Nice.
No way.
What?
VR6.
V6
That's
here.
awesome.
You got a V6.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was the first car I owned. And
So cool.
when I first had it, I modified the heck out of it. So I
Is
took
it
this
still
like
modified?
beautiful. No, I sold it, and then I bought a Corrado VR6 again.
Nice.
Wow.
So the kids enjoy it. So it's noisy. It's
Yeah.
Right.
like so crude, and they're trying to understand
the
like
Corrado VR6 had active aero.
yeah,
Had
a little spoiler.
Okay, that is interesting. That is
But
a very.
I wouldn't say
Not
that's
expecting that one. Wouldn't
No,
have had that
no.
one on my
if I
bingo
had
list.
made a list of cars I thought he would have, that would have been near the bottom of the
Yeah.
list, certainly.
Oh,
What else
near
do
the
we
bottom.
drive? Obviously, you got
so
Rivians. You're taking your kids
R2s,
around.
R1s.
You're driving around R2s?
Wow.
Yeah, there's camouflaged R2s.
How come I can't drive? He's driving around R2.
Right.
What am I?
You saw one in person though.
I did.
I haven't
So is that it? You got Rivians and a Corrado?
Yeah,
Is that true?
it's true.
What cars have you owned in the past?
I've owned all kinds of things. I had a Lotus Elise.
Oh, really?
Which was an awesome.
You were also a taller gentleman. Do you fit?
It was hard to get in and out of.
Okay.
You know, but that was just a really, really fun car. 944 S2,
Oh,
great
cool.
car, really fun car. Let's see, a 914, Porsche 914.
Wow.
Okay.
That I was doing. So I grew up restoring classic Porsches and working on classic Porsches. And so the 914, because I could not afford the 356s I was working on.
Huh.
So I bought the thing I could afford, which
Yeah.
was the 914.
I think
Yeah.
that's most 914
And I was-
owners. Yeah.
I was doing this, it started as a driving car, and I made it not a driving car, meaning it did not function. Because I was in the process of doing a 993 3.6 conversion.
Oh.
So I had 911 turbo brakes on it. You know, all the suspension pickup points on a 914 are the same as a 911 through 1989.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it's very easy to do it like a turbo brake kit because you
Yeah.
just take out
Sure.
the spindle. Anyways, I stopped that whole project when I started Rivian. I started a much bigger car project. So since I started Rivian, I
biggest car
haven't,
project
yeah,
of
I haven't
all.
had any of those kinds of car projects.
And you probably don't have a lot of time to go out and actually pursue these sports cars. And plus, your whole
No.
life is these cars. And so just the Corrado.
Yeah, but
So-
I mean, like I'm like as a Porsche fan, like a Porsche 993.
The running theme of all these cars, though, is kind of smaller, lighter weight, more.
Manual transmission, analog. Like
However,
involved.
the Rivians are kind of the
7,000
opposite. of
pounds
it. So,
behind it, yeah.
so what happened here? You saw what the market demanded instead of what you yourself maybe were interested.
Well, when I first started Rivian, we were working on a sports car.
Yeah.
And realized a couple of years in that it wasn't the right product strategy. And when you build a product, you have to have like, what's the story? What's the brand? How does it resonate? And so we shelved the sports car, recognizing it wasn't the right thing to build around, and that had been tried. Of course, Tesla built its brand, launching the Roadster.
Yeah.
And then spent a lot of time really digging deep to say, what do we want to build? What's the brand want to stand for? And I'm a big adventure enthusiast, and so started to scratch on this idea of a product designed to enable adventure in the broadest sense. Like, it can fit your kids, your gear, your stuff. And if you look at the types of vehicles that are typically in that space, they're very inefficient.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're not fun to drive.
Yep.
Yeah.
You have to have basically a lot of compromises in order to do those things. And so we said, what if we made a vehicle that was designed to enable adventure, but also is super efficient, incredibly fun to drive, had storage in ways you didn't think about storage, you know, so like a gear tunnel that goes right through the side. And so we landed on this idea of building products around adventure.
When was this? What year was this?
This started in some point. You'd like this, Doug. I'll have to show you guys the all the things that happened along the way. But it started in like 2013, and then we had many It's not like we like.
But you
First
started
sketch was this.
specifically going after truck, like that. You started focusing on truck in that era.
Yeah, so we recognized that trucks had become big, and a lot of the positioning of them was around like who can haul more concrete and who can haul more stuff. And a lot of the uses of the trucks are very far from that. So
Right.
most people are using them actually to put maybe they put a sofa in the back, but they're largely using like lifestyle.
Right.
So your gear, your bikes, your
Or
surfboard,
nothing at all.
or
to be
nothing.
honest. Yeah.
And so the first thing that we developed that's actually still on this was this idea of a gear tunnel. Because there's the lack of a trunk in a truck is a
Sure.
classic scenario where you have a big bed, but you don't want to put your groceries in the rain.
Yep.
And so we put a big front trunk and then a big middle trunk.
It's interesting to me that this idea was being developed that early. Obviously, in the years since then, it worked out. Like in the years since then, the 4Runner and the G-Wagon and the Raptor and COVID happened and adventure became an even bigger thing. And you guys were unbelievably well positioned in a way that is quite more than your competitors, right? Like a lot of your competitors debut with sedans, probably because they had years of lead up of developing that sedan, but what turned out to be not what the consumers were interested in.
Yeah.
Like you were perfectly ready with like an electric 4Runner. Like it was like ready to go when people wanted it. And as a result, Rivian has kind of been the most desirable EV. I mean, aside from Tesla and Rivian are like this is what people want. This is like, you think about EVs people actually want. They don't need to be heavily incentivized.
The brands really
buy.
resonated.
Exactly.
And, which was
in those vehicles specifically. I mean, it turned out to really work out. Like you must have thought this was perfect.
Well, what was wild is in like 2017, when things started to come into real focus and the vehicle started to look something like this, we made all these charts and we'd write down like, what do we want the brand to stand for? And you do these like is not, and you'd ask yourself these hypothetical questions. Would a Rivian do X? And we were really precise on it. And then we launched in end of 2018, and then products are on the market end of 2021, and it's actually come together a lot in the way that we thought. Like we wanted the vehicles to be used actively.
Yeah.
We wanted people to connect with them and like get inspired to go do things that they may not do in their existing vehicle. And so I get these emails from customers that will say, hey, you did something to me. I bought your car.
Oh, it's okay.
I hadn't skied in 10 years, and somehow me buying your car
That's really cool.
has me skiing again. Like what did you put in the air filter?
That's cool.
Yeah, which is like, it's like so cool to see your brand connect in the way you'd hope.
And now R2 is going to bring it to more people.
Yeah.
And R3X.
And R2 has some features that just, I'm so excited. The rear glass drops.
Yeah.
4Runner style.
And
That's the only feature my wife wants in a
it's
car.
so
It's actually
cool.
that and CarPlay, so it hits one of the two.
And there's rear windows that pop out,
Yeah.
which as a car enthusiast is
That's
just
so cool.
really cool. So if like a fresh air mode, you press the button, use the negative pressure off the back.
the rear 3/4 window.
Yeah, and then you pull air through the car.
We've got to talk boots. Brunt Workwear Boots. They've been a great partner to this car pod, but I have been called out in the comments for not being a boot guy. Well, recently I headed to Belgium for the Grand Prix at Spa, a notoriously muddy place when it rains. I decided to take my pair of Brunt Marin boots, and everything I said about them in the last podcast is true. They didn't take long to break in, they were very comfortable, and they kept my feet warm and dry when the heavens opened at Spa. I also wore them at the Bois Jacques Forest, the site of the famed stand of the Easy Company of the 101st Airborne during Battle of the Bulge. These boots allowed me to get around the foxholes with ease and pay my respects to the men who served there. They helped me create a memory that I will genuinely carry forever. The founder, Eric Girard, grew up blue collar, worked alongside his buddies in the trades, and kept saying that the big brands had stopped caring. They had turned into fashion brands and hadn't changed in 100 years. So Eric built Brunt from the ground up for real hardworking people. Every boot is named after one of the guys that he grew up with. Real people, real jobs. You can literally wear them to work, beat them up, and if they're not right for you, send them back. Who else does that? Brunt was tired of the workwear brands that were cutting corners. You work too hard to be stuck in uncomfortable boots that don't hold up. So they built something better. Boots that are insanely comfortable and are built for any job site. So for a limited time, our listeners get $10 off at Brunt when you use the code CARS, that's C-A-R-S, at checkout. Just head to bruntworkwear.com and use the code CARS and you're good to go. And after you order, they'll ask you where you heard about Brunt. So do us a favor and tell them you heard it from me and this car pod.
There must have been enormous pressure to launch R1, given all how long it took, and the investors and all that. R2 though is going to be the real. I mean, these are expensive cars. R2 is much more affordable. R2 is going to be the big volume, I imagine.
For sure. So these have an average price of over $90,000, and so
there must be do you feel just as much pressure trying to launch R2, or like this is the big moment where
it's a big moment. Yeah.
When is it
it's also next year, early part of next year, and so with R1 is our first product. And out of the gate, it resonated really well. So we had like truck of the year. Last couple of years in a row, Consumer Reports does this brand appeal study, and we've been at the top of the list.
Yeah.
Highest rate of repurchase. So all these amazing things that we only dreamed of. And so now the hope is we can take this really strong brand success we've had at this premium price point at the at the flagship level and take it into the price point where you see things like a Model Y.
Right.
You see like things like even as sort of normal, if you will, is like a Honda CR-V.
Yeah.
Toyota
price point,
RAV4, Wranglers.
Forerunners, certainly, yeah.
Forerunners, of course. So you pick up just this huge amount of market that's, folks are going to be cross-shopping with a lot of different things. And so because the price overlaps so much with the Model Y, we often get asked, like, is this, like, directly trying to compete with the Model Y? Of course there's going to be cross-shop because the price is there. But really it's going to be addressing the vast majority of folks that are actually not buying an EV. But when they see this, it's like, boy, that thing's like faster than a Porsche 0 to 60. It's got this incredible off-road capability. I can put my kids in it. Their window drops.
It is almost amazing.
It
is almost amazing the things that the Rivian vehicles combine into one.
This is not an ad for Rivian, by the way.
I was my car of the year. Both the SUV and the truck were during the years they came out, and I think it's pretty amazing the things they combine into one. It's kind of an interesting thing that you can do with an electric car. Is kind of make them be fast and off-roady and luxurious and all that. But nonetheless, is there an enthusiast component of electric cars that's missing? This is our friend Kennan's thoughts here.
So you mentioned that initially you conceptualized having a sports car and realized that was the wrong product strategy, which makes sense. And obviously Rivian's focused on, like you said, more adventure stuff.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about the electrification of sports cars in general? As someone who said, you like the analog cars, you love old Porsches and the experience they
own a Corrado.
At least like looking at the future of the sports car, Mate Rimac has said very famously, it's like, no, you need an engine for that experience. It's what customers of the ultra high-end stuff want. You're going to pay over $1 million for a car. You want it to go when you start it. You want to feel that. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the customer for $1 million car is very different than the customer.
But what do you
but
think
generally
about
speaking,
the Porsches? I mean,
Porsche's a great example.
Obviously, there's a lot of cool cars that are electric, but are you as an enthusiast? I mean, you grew up strong. Are you like worried about the loss of the manual, the flat six, the air cooled, in that segment at least?
It's a different flavor, and so an electric. If you dream of like what is an electric Porsche sports car look and feel and drive like, it's not going to have all the same. It's not going to hit all the same buttons that a manual transmission Porsche is going to hit. In the same way, frankly, that like a 993 hits different buttons than a new GT3 RS.
Right.
Like they're very different cars.
Right.
And so I think depending on your own history with cars, you may be drawn more to things that are more nostalgic or older. Like, so I'm actually drawn to like some of those older cars just because they're things I grew up with, things I grew up dreaming about. I know you're a big fan of your Carrera GT, that like one of the last analog, really supercars. Mm-hmm. And so there's something about that. And I think when you look at the sports car space, putting aside like the hypercar space, because I think it is a different customer, I think in the sports car space, people are going to find new ways to enjoy electric vehicles. And like regen is a really interesting thing. And so you start to think about like what role can regen play in creating another driver accessible way to control the vehicle and coming into a corner. And so there's, I think, just things we're going to start to see that people think about and dream about.
Have you driven that Ioniq 5N that has the fake shifting?
Yeah.
We drove it and were astonished by how honest it was, feeling like a dual clutch shifting. Yeah. And it really hit me that like if the automakers start putting this in these cars, that it kind of it doesn't replace a manual transmission experience, but it sort of replaces a dual clutch experience.
Yeah, I think what's funny about that is it's replicating a less capable system. And I think for people like that are maybe enthusiast in the classic sense, that works. I think there's going to be new modalities though of things that are going to emerge around electric vehicles. I think especially when you start to look at like multi-motor per axle. I mean, you guys have just drove up in the quad?
Yeah, I've drove up in a quad.
You haven't done any off-roading in it, but
no. But
the new quad has some torque vectoring features that are so fun.
Yeah.
Like laugh out loud fun. We call it kick steer, where you're like driving on a trail, and with like it's like Gran Turismo easy. You just like press the buttons and the car pivots on its axis.
Right.
And you can make these right angle turns in a way that you're just like, you're like, wow, I feel like I'm a a Group B rally driver here, and it's so much fun, and it's safe, and it's stable.
Yeah. Does simulated shifting and torque vectoring capabilities, does that play that same role for like the next generation of enthusiasts?
I don't know. I think Lamborghini is already looking at that. They were testing the Ioniq 5 at the factory to go see how it was put together. I think there is definitely something there. I felt like that was the future of it but I don't know. I don't know because I'm a dinosaur already. Yeah. I like V12s and manuals, and that's what I like. Yeah. But your kids, like you said, grow up and they are shocked by it.
But that's, we talked about horses jokingly. There are lots of horse enthusiasts still. People that own horses.
That's a great point.
It is not the best way to move around. No longer. There's much faster, more efficient ways to move. But people enjoy them, and so they still own them. And I think, hypercars, I think, are more in that category. But if you're going to own $1 million car, it's far from practical. That's not a practical choice. And so you're not implicitly, by buying $1 million car, you're already making a decision that this is an impractical purchase. And so I think when you're making an impractical purchase, there's all sorts of things that are maybe not practical.
Yes.
And so in our case, for R2 or even R3 and R3X, which I think
I'm very excited for
R3X.
Very excited for R3.
The channel you're Lancia, Delta, Integrale.
R2 is very important, and I think that R3 is my cherry on top. That's what I'm waiting.
When you go off-roading, whether it's low speed up a trail or higher speed on a gravel trail, electric is really enjoyable.
It is.
The instant torque is nice.
Yep.
You never find yourself in the wrong gear on a rock. Oh geez, I'm rolling backwards. It's just instant torque.
The danger.
Yeah, it's. But
I'm half joking.
Actually, deep off-roading enthusiast.
Deep danger enthusiast.
One of the challenges with off-roading is it does have a barrier to entry that historically, because it takes knowledge of what does a differential do? What's a center locking differential? What's a rear differential? And suddenly you get into a quad motor R1 and you just
tap the off-road mode and
you just can do it. And suddenly you're
on that subject, one thing people talk to us a lot about, not necessarily in terms of Rivian, although maybe more with quad, but the Hummers is just the sheer size of these vehicles and the sheer acceleration level of these vehicles.
We've been driving the R1S quad, the Gen 2 quad around. It's insane.
It's really quick.
Is there any
2.6 seconds?
We all smile and laugh about it. We think it's awesome. Is there any? Do we have any corporate responsibility fears about people having people? I actually get asked this question a lot, particularly when the Hummer came out, which I was pretty into, and I still am.
I love that they always said, "Are you afraid that little old ladies get out?" It's if there's a little lady driving a Hummer EV, that's one thing.
But what do you think about that? These cars are really fast and really big, and it doesn't require any special. When we were kids, you had to be really legit to have access to a car that was anywhere near this.
Right, but electric cars have democratized speed in such a.
I remember when the 993 Turbo came out and it hit 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, and it was the top of the chart for 0 to 60, and I was like, wow, I can't believe a car can break 4 seconds.
Right now you can do it,
and now I can be with my kids in the back and a lawnmower in the vehicle. I can do 2.5 seconds in an R1T.
Yeah.
And so,
is that a good idea? It's a 7,000-pound vehicle.
Yeah, so
you guys have done a great safety system. It seems so safe to do that 2.5 seconds, 0 to 60.
Yeah.
But is it?
It's very safe. There's a whole bunch of.
Yeah, but is it wise?
Is it wise? I think it's important. Why does a car like that exist?
Sure.
Why do we make a 2.5 second 0 to 60 SUV and truck?
Yeah.
We think it's important to answer some of your questions, which is you can still have fun in an electric vehicle. And it's you see the badge in the back for the quad is this little gear guard figure that Paris being blown back. We're having fun with it. We're embracing the silliness of a 2.5 second 0 to 60 SUV. And it's a brand building vehicle. It's not going to be the highest volume vehicle. But it really helps people get excited around maybe they get a tri or a dual motor. And of course it opens up the door for people to say, oh, wow, I want to consider this R2.
Right.
Can I ask about that? All right, so the only visual differentiations of the quad motor are the brake calipers and the R1S badge says quad in the middle.
And the gear guard with his hair.
Sure.
Yeah.
Why not more?
We're astonished by this. When we were kids, you get an M3 and it's got rocker panels and it's got badging and it's got different wheels and it's got a wing and it's got there's all this stuff because you want your neighbors to know I got the expensive one.
I don't, so I love the subtlety, but Kenan's M5 is special because it looks visually distinct.
Most people who are spending more over a regular one want to show
off. Why not
off,
wide fenders? Why not spoiler?
Why don't we have some flared fenders on this thing?
I mean that question seriously, legitimately.
I think given infinite time resources, we probably would have done maybe different front end fascia.
Oh, okay.
We like the subtlety of this one.
Yeah,
and I think over time you may see like our next like Gen 3 quad maybe have something that's a little bit different than the Tri, but it was like a lot of debate around this, like how aggressive do we go? And we went with subtle here. Over time, we think its personality around quad could continue to evolve.
I was telling our producer yesterday that I love it, and therefore it's probably not the right product lane decision.
Well, you see with like G-Wagon, right, which is a competitor. The regular one looks like the regular one. The 63 has the big wheels and the brush
it's
guard
harder and harder
front
to tell at a glance.
Well, a lot of them are 63s, but they really do sell it, right? They really, and I think that probably appeals to people, and you still see that in a lot of ways.
For our brand, we also there's a degree of subtlety to I mean, you walk around this lot, that SUV is faster to 100 miles an hour than almost everything on this lawn.
Yeah, insane. Totally.
Which is really wild. And so the fact that you're starting there, it sort of says, okay, we don't actually need all these like scoops and all this.
Yeah,
it just doesn't need it.
Yeah.
But that was probably always true, right? We knew that the M3 didn't in the 90s didn't need a rear wing.
The Corrado maybe didn't need active air, but it had it. Fair enough.
Yeah.
But it had it.
I need that extra downforce.
Can I ask one other question? Going online without ExpressVPN, it's like putting all your passwords and credit card numbers on a huge billboard for the whole world to see, especially when you're traveling like I am right now. Every time you hop on a public Wi-Fi network, at the airport, the hotel, or at your favorite coffee shop, your data is just floating out there for the taking, totally unprotected. Hackers on the same network can scoop it up, passwords, credit cards, even your bank logins. I'm in Monterey for Car Week, and even though this is a nice hotel, the only reason my data is safe is because of ExpressVPN, giving me the confidence to travel with my data. Your data is worth something. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per person selling your info on the dark web. That's where ExpressVPN comes in. It locks down your connection for a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. Basically, it turns your online activity into Fort Knox. A hacker with a supercomputer would need 1 billion years to crack ExpressVPN's encryption. And best of all, it's stupid simple. You just fire up the app, hit one button, and you're protected. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/cars. That's expressvpn.com/cars to find out how you can get up to 4 months for free. expressvpn.com/cars. So in a bunch of drag tests, or drag races, the Rivian is fastest off the line, but then loses out to some other cars because of the speed limiter.
Yep.
I assume you guys have done some testings without it. Where do you get?
Well, you asked the question before on safety. That's it. So we made the decision on the non-quad, we limited to 110. And then in the quad, we limited to 130, really just because otherwise it would just kill the quarter mile time.
Right.
And in fact, the 130 is only enabled when you go into sport mode.
But how fast could this thing go if we let it run?
A lot faster.
What's the top speed?
But the reason we don't.
on your R1S, which I assume maybe has some special features.
I've got a lot faster than those.
Yeah.
So
on a close track. But look, where are you getting to?
You could go a lot faster. But, I mean, these are not cars you can hack, so nobody will ever unlock them.
Well, no, but, but there's got to be a benefit to being the CO.
But the reason is, at 130, you're committing a felony on every road in the United States.
Yeah, but not on the Bonneville Salt Flats.
Sure.
Yeah.
But again, we just said, like, this. If you're going to the Bonneville Salt Flats, you're probably not taking this. And so,
I don't know. I like it.
It was like a corporate decision.
It's a good one.
Let's err on the side of safety. And the cars are so quick. I mean, you're on the throttle for a second. You could be going 150.
Yeah.
Way faster than you realize.
All right. So that was part. At least 150.
150.
What we got. That's the news item for the day.
Is it faster than F40? We don't know yet.
All right. I lied. I have one more question. What is special about your R1S, your R1T? What can regular people not get that you have?
What features are you demoing that you're not allowed to reveal yet?
The Porsche family is famous for having special one-off models built of cars.
Yeah.
You're the founder and CEO. What do you have in your one?
Not particularly different. I drive, like the R2, of course, is just because it's it's on out. But the R1, I'm usually a software release or two ahead of everything else, which is just part of my job.
Yeah, and other people are too in the company, I'm sure.
Yeah, a lot of our team is on early release. And that's fun. And it's also because you're on an early release, you spot things you can change.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I really enjoy is because we do a software release every month. we can be continually adding features, and it is very dynamic. So I'll get like emails from customers with an idea, and I'll call our head of software. I'll call Wasim and be like, "Hey, let's get this."
Really?
That's
Yeah.
so cool.
How legit is that?
It's very cool.
That is
like my dad was bugging me for the longest time on the car wash feature, the way it was activated and in the way the mirrors folded. So we changed it, and in the release notes, I was like, "Thank you, Dad, for the advice." Something like, "Please stop asking me."
On that subject with regards to founders, and we're going to move on to market report next quickly, and then we'll move on to questions. A lot of people ask questions they have for you, and we want to talk through it. But I do have one other question, which is regarding your sort of the face that you are for the business versus, say, Elon.
Yeah.
Elon is. Chose to make himself kind of like Tesla and Elon are inextricably linked in basically everybody's minds. The result of that was a cult of personality kind of formed around him, and I think that probably had a huge benefit for the success of that brand for a long time.
And risk now.
Now we're seeing maybe
seeing
some
the
of the
other side.
drawbacks of that. You have never been kind of as outgoing in terms of tying yourself to this brand as Elon. Was that intentional? Do you regret it? Were you looking at Elon saying, "Hey, I'm cool too" during this process? Like, what?
Yeah. I think like if you start a company, there's always, or if you're like a core part of running a business, you're going to be linked to it. I think for me, we've been more reserved just in how we've come across as a company.
Yeah.
I'm more reserved as a person, and I think we've been intentional in trying to be as inclusive as possible. And so as a brand, I say this all the time, we have, a wide spread of demographics. We have Republicans that buy our cars, we have Democrats that buy our cars. We want to be appealing to both, and have tried really hard to make sure that the environment is the broadest possible welcome mat to all customers. And I think Tesla did that for a while. I think the brand they built is still really strong. But my personality is much different than
Yeah, and that's what it came down to. You think is that you weren't the guy who was going to be out there tweeting the president.
Yeah, and I think just like my social presence is much smaller, and
intentionally, like you feel that that's just who you are more.
Yeah, it's more. It's not as designed as maybe your thing. It's more of like the resultant of just two very different personalities.
Got it.
Not that one's right or wrong. I think it's been super productive for Tesla, as you said, for creating tons of
Was there
awareness.
ever any push from your PR folks or from your marketing saying,
Be
"Come
more
on, get out there
From
more.
your shareholders.
do
I
more
imagine there has
crazy
been,
stuff"?
Yeah, I don't know if there's been a push. I think, jokingly, people are like, say, "RJ, you're not going to go do this, are you?"
We don't need to get into what.
Well, you're on a podcast. We don't have
there you
to
go.
wait for you, so
No,
don't worry.
no drugs on the podcast. No, nothing like that. I think sometimes some of this stuff gets taken so seriously.
Yeah.
I've owned 2 Teslas. I think there's a perception that one company for one company to be successful, everyone has to fail. And what's so wonderful about the auto industry and for as a car enthusiast is many companies can be successful. It's very different than tech.
Yeah.
Like if you think of big tech, there's generally there's 1 or 2 dominant players in a segment for a market. And in auto, you can have all these different flavors, different personalities.
Yeah.
Right.
And the personalities maybe have some echoing effects from their leadership or their founders. And so, our products have a lot of my personality in them.
Right.
And some of their subtlety and quiet confidence.
Yeah.
Right. There's one last question I want to ask just based on that. Are there any other automotive CEOs you look at and you admire what they've done with their vision for their companies along those same lines that what you've done with yours?
Yeah, it's such a small world.
It is.
So I have great friendships with a lot of different CEOs, and it's fun to trade notes. And a lot of times you find yourself, y'all send them a text, be like, "Hey, I really like this." You'll get a text like, "Hey, nice job." So it's sort of, it's more, it's more collaborative behind the scenes, I think, than you think. And especially in the last few months with all the significant changes. Certainly I've talked to other CEOs and said, "Hey, how are you guys thinking about wire harness supply?" Or, just to think about how we're all responding to trade tariffs and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Texting Mary Barrow, asking on a group text with Jim and Jim Farley, and just.
No, but you mentioned Mate. He's a friend of mine, good friend of mine. He's, I think he's outstanding. He's done some really interesting things, great technology.
Yeah.
We both started companies around the same time, so we've known each other over the years.
In that world
It's
too.
so
yeah.
cool.
I'll mention, just because it happened off camera earlier, you did say that the E39 M5 is the greatest car ever made.
I didn't say greatest car
All
made.
right. Sorry.
I didn't even say the best M car, but best M5.
What is the best M car?
Oof. Probably the E46.
Oh wow!
We'll accept that.
Wow.
Sorry.
Well, actually,
and what do you guys-
knows our audience well.
The
Ken and I
E46
tried.
M3 is more like what BMW is about. Straight six is their core competency
I mean, that
engine.
car is just so
historically,
cool, yeah.
Car is perfect 50-50 weight distribution.
Yeah.
It's small, lightweight,
353
tossable, high
horsepower,
revving. It's like what an M car is supposed to be traditionally.
Yeah.
The M5 is just the best. But the
I have a friend that
I'm
started
kidding,
an E30 conversion where he's putting a E46.
that's it. That's
Yeah.
That'll
Great
make that thing a borderline.
But it's funny.
death.
He's like, I should have just bought a GT3 RS because it would have been cheaper.
Yeah.
I would have been. But anybody can just do that. He built something cool.
Yeah.
I want to talk market report, and specifically, since you're here, we want to talk EV market report, which is typically where we talk about used car values and what used cars are sold strong recently, sold poorly, what's cheap, what's expensive. We haven't actually talked in the market report segment that much about EVs. We talk in the news segment a lot about EVs because they're in the news, but in the market report we don't cover it all that often. But it is an interesting topic because there is some crazy EV depreciation. Are you aware already that Rivians? What did we say?
We've R1 high mile R1Ts. We've seen 55,000 mile R1Ts are in the 50s now.
In the 50s. I mean, this is going to be a car in the 40s pretty soon. That's a pretty appealing car from a used perspective.
I want to go back in time a little bit. In 2022 and 2023, we saw a ton of interest in the R1T and then the R1S.
Yeah.
For a long time, I remember that first R1T sale. Do you remember, Doug?
Yeah.
In 2022,
130
it was
grand.
right after it came out, we were 30 grand because nobody
We
could
were
get
making
one.
big
appreciation.
money on the Rivians while you guys.
If you
we
look
would
back
joke,
at
yeah,
it,
We were
it was,
losing money on the cars at the time. And like all these people were buying and selling, and making money.
Yeah, we were making more money on Rivians than you were.
That's true.
But now, obviously, there's a little bit of depreciation. They seem to depreciate like normal
Yeah, the
vehicles
4-year-old
to a larger
cars,
extent. As the CEO of the company, how do you think about what the used market looks like, how to maintain that? Ferrari as an exotic car manufacturer obviously has to think a lot about how do we treat our customers, what do they expect?
Yeah.
Is that true as the CEO of a new company?
Yeah, I mean, you might be surprised. We spend a ton of time talking about depreciation. We track it very closely.
Is there a fear? Is there a goal? Is there a target?
The Rivians are actually relative to
They're incredible. It's amazing
relative
how much
to
they're
any other
holding
EV.
up.
They
I appreciate
depreciate
much
Which
less.
shows
well.
the level of interest and excitement in the cars.
brand.
I think
Absolutely.
more than any other individual thing, depreciation kind of proves what the actual interest
Yeah.
is, right? Because you
Yeah.
can put a sticker price wherever you want to, but we know transaction prices for a lot of cars are lower, Maserati, and then what ends up happening in the used market is really where they're priced, right?
Yeah.
And I think the fact that Rivians have held up relatively well
yeah.
is
Especially
a
for
pretty
EVs,
good marker
but-
of demand. But
Yeah.
so you put a lot of thought into it. You're thinking about this.
So
about-
I mean, so the obvious things is like what happens in when we did the Gen 1 and Gen 2,
Yeah.
you think about like what happens to the Gen 1 vehicles. And so as you referenced, like a $55,000 2021 high mileage Gen 1 R1 4-year-old car. the
55
technology
is-
stage, it's actually not bad.
No, it's
You're
not
at
bad.
The car was probably
65% of
purchased at
MSRP,
75,
yeah.
So it's doing pretty well.
It's doing well, but it is starting to get. I mean, two, 3 more years, we start to see this thing in the 30s. That's pretty cool. As a car,
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, before I jump to that, because that's an important point. The other thing we spent a lot of time thinking about is pricing changes.
Yeah.
And so when you
remember
move your pricing
2022,
around
yeah.
a lot, and we've had an experience where we did move pricing right as we were launching, and it had a whole bunch. We didn't go down there.
Oh, we remember.
No,
No,
tears.
we-
No,
we don't need to go
I'd
down that
love
road.
to go down that road, but
Never
we'll
forget
We'll
it.
save that next time. But we made we made some tactical errors in how we did it, but just recognizing the sensitivity to movements in your price up or down, what it can do to people who just purchased a car,
Sure.
what it can do to the secondary markets or depreciated value. So we have a whole pricing process. We're like, I hate the word committee. We have a pricing committee that makes sure that we're not sort of knee-jerking around with pricing.
Yeah.
And
Nice little
then
Tesla call out there.
well, and then what we do on the pricing is if you do that really well and you do maintain residual, it helps you get to much better lease rates.
Yeah.
And so if you look at the Rivian lease rates, they're quite attractive. And a big part of that is that our residuals are so strong.
Yep.
You might be the only EV CEO that can say that. I think it's a lot of
man.
EV lease
Well,
deals have been based on residuals that have not been reality.
Yeah.
On that topic, I want to talk about your thoughts on the other market report topic is the other thoughts on other EVs. Are you looking at used market? It's wild how cheap some of these EVs
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
Model S's are sub 10, early Model S's that are 13.
But
14
even
years old,
fairly
sub 10.
recent. You can get a Model 3 Performance now for under
Less than
20,
30.
right?
20
25.
for like a high mile early one. 20.
These are cars that do 0 to 60 in 3 seconds that are only a couple years old. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable, the depreciation on these.
Well, this is, I was just going to say, I think one of the exciting things for me, as much as we don't want our vehicles to depreciate, the passage of time leads to the vehicle's price coming down, in part because the technology becomes a little older. But they're really important for building the brand to get people exposure.
Sure.
And so, I grew up a Porsche enthusiast. I've never bought a new Porsche. I've owned multiple Porsches, and like the ability to be exposed to a brand that you aspire to through a vehicle that's 10 or 20 years old is really powerful.
That's really
and so, with R1, it's going to do that with 5, 6-year-old cars. You're going to start to see people be able to afford it that couldn't before, and then R2 will do that as well. And so, what's really fun for us is typically when you look at, let's say, Porsche or existing brand, a legacy brand, they don't have any participation really directly in that used marketplace, because once they sell the car to wholesalers, to dealers, it sort of becomes out of the world.
Right.
And so in contrast, we get to play in that world for a long time.
Sure.
We're active participants in our used marketplace. In the fullness of time, I hope and anticipate being able to participate. So like transacting on these, so buying our own cars back, creating a really smooth, seamless experience for first-time Rivian customers, buying a used Rivian. Because so much of these vehicles depends on software, our ability to keep those vehicles current is really powerful.
Remove self-driving and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, we got to move on to questions from our audience. We told
I know, right?
We told our audience that you were going to be on. We asked them to ask questions. They asked a lot of questions, some of which are very, very interesting, directed at you. And we have a few minutes for them. Starting with the first question from our user Buick.
Oh, Buick.
Oh, yeah,
For
Buick.
RJ.
Which, by the way, only makes EVs in mostly for China now.
Do you think there
fully
could
true,
be
but-
room for a Rivian? Everybody wants future product information, which he's not going to give
Please talk
us.
about R4
Do you
right now.
think? Do you think there could be room for a Rivian with a removable roof, or perhaps maybe even more doors or maybe even removable doors to directly compete with the Wrangler and Bronco? That has been a shockingly strong segment, Wrangler Bronco.
Yeah.
Are we thinking about?
Sounds like my dad.
He's got some great
Well, his
ideas.
name is Buick.
So we've never shown it. I might as well just say it here.
Wow.
When we
Ready to cut
developed
the short
R1, we originally had, and in fact, like tooled it, and there are some of these still in our fleet that had a removable carbon fiber roof.
Really?
Yeah.
Like removable in what way? You can take
So
it off?
essentially, you can't see it on camera, but it was a Rivian like this. So the whole glass roof was replaced with a 3-piece carbon fiber.
Oh, like a Targa top almost. Like
Like it would be removed and like taken away from the
It
vehicle?
removed and fit nicely into
Somewhere.
the front trunk.
Wow.
Wow.
And we decided to not do it because it was adding a lot of complexity to production. We had all kinds of challenges with supply
so
chain.
did Ford.
But it was actually a really neat thing because you could drive in an open top setup. So I wouldn't say never. We certainly recognize the appeal, especially for an adventure vehicle, being able to take the top off. In R2, we've already talked about how the rear glass goes down. So
we're thinking about it. There are thoughts. They're in the minds. They're in the minds.
We are enthusiasts that recognize the coolness of removing glass from the car.
Okay.
You're going to set up a concept car tour for us, right? We'll come to your factory.
Right behind this display. We got all
On a similar subject,
Thank you.
from Hemoglobin, RJ, would you ever consider, and I think this is especially an interesting one, would you ever consider offer gasoline range extender versions of Rivian trucks like Scout plans on doing with theirs?
No.
Never. This is never going to be a thing.
0.0.
Do customers ever ask, like obviously Scout thinks there's a market for it.
And you guys are a part of that development.
Yeah.
And there is going to be a lot of overlap crossover between your vehicle and their vehicle, a similar sort of situation. Do customers ever ask for it?
Not really. And I recognize some brands are going to do that, and we've seen that range extended EV do really well in China. But for us, it's not something we'd focus on.
You're not going to do
I'd see
combustion.
it as I think it is an intermediate solution, and so it's a lot of effort to develop capabilities that are unavoidably throwaway capabilities. And so if you're an existing manufacturer that already has a team, maybe you could see why. But we're so clearly, focused on a pure EV play.
Right. It's a lot. It would be a lot of work to get into the combustion engine.
And it doesn't
game at
align
this
with
point.
how we think about products, and you make a bunch of different decisions around vehicle architecture.
Sure. Okay, next question from CX9er. Question for RJ. How are you going to make sure that Rivians stay fun and exciting? Tesla made a ridiculous truck that got everyone's attention. Hyundai has a manual transmission. Somehow, Chinese EVs can jump. One of the interesting things we talk about a lot is how in the past, cars were distinguished heavily based on their powertrains.
Yeah.
And now with EVs, that won't be the case anymore. And so automakers are going to kind of have, it seems to us that automakers are going to have to keep doing kind of more unusual stuff to get, like you see this jumping Chinese EV, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, the Chinese in general have really gone
got
there.
some weird
They're just
stuff.
doing what kids would do with
They've
cars.
seen us
really.
cars,
It's like,
and they've got some weird stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're thinking about if, especially as cars can drive themselves, what can we do for the driver?
Jumping Rivians. That's what I'm hearing.
No jumping Rivians.
Right.
But I mean, like the kicksteer feature I talked about. That's you have to use it. It's sort of it's crazy. It's like really cool. The whole car rotates on its axis, and you can spin. It's all kinds of things, but. Is that something you're going to use going to the grocery store? Probably not. So it is a feature like that's exciting. I think across every vehicle, whether it's R2 or R3 or even thinking about things beyond that, we actually are very structured in saying, like, what are the things, if you had to show your friend, hey, check this out, what are the things you'd immediately point to? And you talk about it as quirks and features, like what are some of the things that just like stand out, leave an impression? And every car will have some collection of those. Some will carry between vehicles. Like we have a flashlight in R1.
Yep.
Flashlight in R2.
Speaker in
R3. And then some will be unique to each vehicle. R1T has this gear tunnel.
Is there thought of just like weird stuff? Like, should we be thinking about like fish tanks in cars, or like you know what I mean? Like, are you trying to think about where is this going to go? The windshield.
Speaking of fish tanks, did you see the cars there's some people in China that are doing wraps?
Yes, with the fish
with
in them.
fish and actual fish.
Okay, are we thinking about fish wraps? Or
Factory wrap?
That is not in our model, but I couldn't believe that was a real thing. I was like,
I know. It's like, is that AI or is that real?
Is there thought about like weird? Like, do you have futurist type people working on like what weird crap is going to be out there that we have to be ahead of?
Yeah, a lot of some of the most interesting, wild ideas run up against what you can do from a regulatory point of view.
Yeah.
And so, linked to that is when you design the car, a lot of thought goes into what becomes a projectile. So in the event of a collision, like if you have a fish tank, it looks cool until you get into like a bad accident. You've got like a fish tank in your face.
Well, there's just not enough room on that line to like in the insurance form to write exactly
it's just
what
like a lot of work to
Exhibit
make
did
the
it,
fish
though,
tank not
so.
start to like become something that's flying.
koi everywhere.
Okay, question from Joe Silver. RJ, if you could drop a Rivian skateboard platform under any classic vehicle body, like a Restomod, what would it be and why? What would you choose?
I have the answer to that. But I wouldn't take the whole platform because it's bigger than the vehicle. But
But okay, but pretend it would be.
I would take the new dual motor, so 2 motor per axle. That's in the quad. It's also in the back of the tri, and put it on a 21 window bus.
Nice.
That sounds like terrifying.
It sounds perfect because it's like 600 horsepower in the back of a VW bus.
That's
Now,
a great idea.
Volkswagen has done
But it has
something sort of
power
like
in the
this.
back. It's
What are
like-
your thoughts about this Volkswagen ID Buzz situation?
It's a little different, but
It's a different idea than what I'm talking about.
It is different. It is different, but they've modernized it a little bit.
Yeah,
Do
I
you
think it's cool.
Yeah.
It's in the list of vehicles. If I was going to buy a non-Rivian, it'd be one of my list of things I'd consider.
What else on that list?
What else is on the list? I think the Taycan's like a fun car. It's like a 4-door 911 that's electric, so it's a lot of things.
Yeah.
But
It drives like that too.
yeah,
right?
and I think it's a car that I often, when people ask me about that car, I say you have to look at it through the lens of this is a sports car that has 4 doors.
Yeah.
It's not trying to be an everyday luxury sedan. But I think it's
is there a gas-powered car on that list? Or diesel-powered? Yeah.
You
probably
seem like,
one.
What?
A 911.
Yeah.
so you seem like a 911 ST would be.
One car. Yeah, that's the only.
Fair.
I
No,
think
that's
every
nice.
enthusiast.
Yeah. Wants one. 100%.
It's like every enthusiast and every car company CEO either wants one or has one and will never tell me.
That's true.
Can I
I've heard
make
that.
Hide the 911s and
Make a request
Steve Jobs.
in the vein of your father. Can I make a request? I love minivans.
Okay, yeah.
R1,
You like my,
R2V.
you like my 21 or 23 window bus.
Yeah, but I want like a modern, regular looking Mini. I just want the utmost practicality. Can we do like a
1987 Caravan?
Yeah, or just an R1V. Can we make that happen? Sliding door on the side, lower
I love
height.
heights too. I mean, clothing. So we're not.
Something to consider.
Yeah.
Small market,
Not-
but
not-
yeah.
Not in the. Not in
Oh, alas.
Vans are low on the list. Okay, one more question from Joe Silver. RJ, if you gave a Rivian's design team zero budget constraints for a Halo vehicle, what would they build? Or maybe what would you direct them to build? To build like a Halo car at the top of the range.
Yeah. So we do a lot of exercises on the design team. Someday we may have to show all this.
Please.
That like when you're designing, when you're going through like R2, where R2 is today, the team gets like pulled into like painful details. So you're like designing the inside of a headlight, like reflecting surface. And so your brain gets so locked into sketching R2s and every detail on R2. And so we need like ways to reset thinking. And so to like get your brain remixed. And so we actually do a lot of things that the design team will do, like a 2-week sprint on an exercise just to get our brains reset. And so that has meant we've designed all kinds of things, like what would Rivian look like if it was a movie character, like in a superhero movie. But one of the exercises, which was a particularly fun one, and it directly related to that question, is what would Rivian look like if we made a hypercar?
Yeah.
And so internally, that design effort or design project called, what would the R1R look like? So it was like the R1 guts in terms of performance.
Right.
With a completely different body.
Right.
You have no constraints. Like imagine like carbon fiber monocoque tab. Yeah, and they look freaking awesome. So it's like the thing you really want.
Is it like off-roady focused? Or
It was so good that like at the end I was like, let me go talk to Claire. So what do you think if we get all the numbers in the right place? 2029, I think we want to slip this like 500 unit production thing in, and it was like, yeah, not yet.
Forever a car enthusiast.
Not yet.
No question.
But yeah, we have an idea what we would do.
interesting. So it's been
It's
talked
not,
about.
but it's not, when you're making high volume, it's really hard financially to rationalize doing something like that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So R1R sounds pretty good.
Sounds
It would
pretty
be
good.
awesome.
What have you done with the old, old concept or old cars that you've had as test mules and things like that? Do you have like personal affinity for like the first Rivian that drove?
We have them all. They're in a warehouse. We have a warehouse full of all these.
Is this ever going to be like someday these things get
Someday.
out and
I think the thing that would blow people's minds is to see the evolution of this.
Yeah.
what it once looked like?
Well, there's like 3 distinct eras of R1. R1 started as a much smaller truck,
Really?
and then it grew, and then it went a very different route in terms of aesthetic, and it looked.
Interesting.
It didn't look at all like it needed to look.
Have you ever shown these? Have you ever shown
Never,
them?
never.
Oh.
So before R1, it was called A1, and then before A1, it was called P1.
Huh.
P1 looked very different. It's really cool. As enthusiasts, you guys all love it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And then A1, it's actually probably less cool. It was like it was too theoretical. It was like it looked like engineers had too much control, and the design team was like shoved and locked into a closet. And then this was like everything was balanced.
yeah, that makes sense.
It's a good try. I will say we've talked to a lot of your design team, including the interior design team, and I want to say the interior of the R1S that we've been driving around is the single nicest.
It's.
interior
We're not just saying that
I've
because you're
ridden in.
here. Like,
I'm really not.
it's
Ever? You
amazing
never been on
how
my box?
nice it is.
The
You never
single
been on
nicest interior
Rolls?
for my aesthetic.
You need to get into
that
a
I've been in.
Spectre.
No, because it's simple. It's a lot of
They're
it's a lot of
skewing
natural
younger.
wood.
Which
and-
color are you in?
The same as this, like the
It's like the
lightest
light-
blue
yeah,
leather and the
yeah.
light. It truly is my favorite interior. I've been in a
Flipo,
long
for the
time.
love of God, just buy one already. Just like get one. Come on.
No offense.
Buy. He never buys a
I
car.
buy
He always
cars
talks
under
about these things
$20,000 only.
Okay.
So you got
You gotta wait a long
All
time
right.
for.
Do we have any
quad.
do we have any final words for RJ? Do we have any final thoughts or
Thank you so much for doing this with us. I'm sure I loved going deep on the mechanics of running a car company, so thank you for engaging in that.
Yeah.
And for agreeing with Ken that BMW E39 M5 is the best
Best
M5.
M5.
the greatest
Yeah,
M5?
Best M5.
M5. What are you hoping to see the rest of the day here? I know you're with your kids.
What's
walking around.
something cool you're gonna go look at
Well,
later?
as a responsibility I have, I feel like with my kids, is to make sure that they're properly exposed to all the right things. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna walk them around and help explain to them why certain cars are the cool cars to look at.
I know somebody with a Countach.
Take them by the
being shown
Countach.
right there.
Yeah.
That's where the really cool stuff is. Aside from the Rivian booth, of course.
Of course.
There was a Diablo SV that drove by before, and then right behind it was a really like zero taste modified new Lamborghini.
Okay.
And my son says, he asked about the Diablo SV. He's like, is that nice? I'm like, yeah,
Yes.
it's pretty cool. And then the next one, he's like, how about that? I'm like, no. That's horrible.
Horrible.
And so I was trying to explain to him why.
I wish I had a dad who was like that. I did all this stuff on my own.
What'd you tell him? How'd you
Why did I
explain? You said this person has no taste.
Well, the Diablo is an interesting car because it's become more loved recently.
Yeah. Correctly so.
Yeah,
on
and,
its
I think,
ascendant.
and you know, for me, I grew up, you know, Diablo is like the car that I think Diablo is interesting because of the story of it too. There's like, you know, it's like a tube frame car.
Yep, that weird transition into
It's like this,
Volkswagen ownership.
It's like before the cars were really fully developed, like from a car company.
Right.
When they were still
Right. Yeah.
like parts fell off and it had a lot of charm. And,
Right.
you know, now they're
Still
now they're
putting
also
wings on in the back of their
Surprisingly
factory
nice to
parking
drive,
lot.
though, I have
Yeah.
to say. Especially the rear-wheel drive ones.
Yeah.
Get out there and show them all the cool cars, not just the Rivians, which are also cool cars. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
coming
Evan.
on. We sincerely appreciate it and all the insights.
Yeah.
And thank you for watching This Car Pod.
Best episode we ever have done.
Best we've ever done. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye.